Hello, 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 and welcome. Both of you are tuning in live, and for those of you who may be tuning in on the replay. Now, today I'm really super excited because this has actually been a topic that I've kind of been mulling over, I would say, for the last few days, and that's basically 3 simple questions that you and I can ask ourselves if we're dealing with the fear of success. Now, just before I jump into that, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nina Dafe, and I am the founder and the editor of the Far Above Rubies collection.com. And I basically help ladies to know their worth, power, and purpose as women of God. So what got me thinking about this is the fact that on Sunday, I wrote about a woman of the Bible called Orpah. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Orpah, she features in, let me just check, Ruth 1 verses 3 to 14. And basically, going to do a quick summary for those of you who might not know the story. There was a lady called Naomi who was originally from Bethlehem. There was basically like a famine, I think, that was happening in Bethlehem. So she and her husband ended up leaving there and going to settle in a place called Moab. She had 2 sons there, and everything looked great. They were prospering, but then famine also hit the land of Moab, and unfortunately her husband died. Fast forward a few years later, and her sons also grew up. They ended up getting married to 2 Moabitess women called Orpah and Ruth. And then, unfortunately, what happens is that Naomi's 2 sons then go on to die because of the famine as well. So Naomi, of course, is really sad. She's devastated. She feels like she left Bethlehem full, and she's gone to Moab, and she's basically empty there. But then she gets word that there's bread in Bethlehem, that God has blessed Bethlehem, and that despite the famine, actually there's bread there. So she decides that she's going to go back home. So what ends up happening is that Orpah and Ruth, her 2 daughters-in-law, love her so much that actually they're both insistent that they're going to go with her. So they all start off on this journey, and then Naomi basically says, do you know what, ladies, as much as I love you, you should go back to your families in Moab, because it grieves me that Naomi felt that the Lord has basically risen up against her, and that maybe this has happened because of some sort of judgment against her. And the 2 ladies, they start to cry. It's all floods of tears. It's extremely emotional, and both ladies are like, no, we're going back to Bethlehem with you. We don't want to go back to Moab. And then Naomi basically says, it's unfair that you should come back with me to Bethlehem, and at the end of the day we're all just going to be widows together, and how are you going to survive? Because how many of you know that obviously back then women couldn't look after themselves in the same way that we do now. They didn't have the same rights, and so if a woman didn't have a husband to look after her, or elder sons or something like that, then life could be very hard for her. So you see a lot of biblical scriptures that talk about the fact that we need to look after not just orphans but widows and stuff like that, and that's where that comes from. And Naomi's very much like, look, even if God did bless me with a husband and I had a child today, are you really going to wait around until they become old enough to look after you? No, you should go back to Moab, go back to your people, go back to your gods, and just let me go back to Bethlehem. And what ends up happening is Orpah basically hears reason, and she basically, gives her mother-in-law a kiss and decides to go back to Moab. Whereas Ruth, for those of you who are, familiar with the story, she has those famous lines of entreat me not to leave you, so she clings to Naomi and is basically like, I'm not leaving you. I am going with you. And Naomi basically has to relent, because Naomi is adamant she's not going anywhere. And the 2 of them go to Bethlehem. Now, after this, we don't hear about Orpah again. That is literally the last mention of her in the Bible. Whereas with Ruth, she goes on, very long story short, to marry a man named Boaz, who ends up being her husband. She also births two children, but more than that, she ends up kind of being grafted into the lineage of Christ, and she ends up being one of his like great, 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 grandmothers. So Jesus was actually one of her descendants. So by comparison, when we think about these two ladies, a lot of the times when we are studying the book of Ruth, or we hear it in church, or people reference it, they are either talking about Naomi and how she went on to be blessed later, or they're talking about Ruth, because by comparison of her counterpart Orpah, she appears to be successful. She's the one who basically went on to have those blessings bestowed upon her, whereas we never ever hear of Orpah again, as I said. So in the blog post that I wrote on Sunday, I talked about what Orpah teaches us in terms of success, and it was three things, and these were the importance of not giving up, because if you notice, both her and Ruth started off on the same path. They both could have ended up with similar stories, but Orpah gave up. She went back to Moab, whereas Ruth continued. The other thing is that Orpah, by comparison to Ruth, was able to be discouraged and dissuaded by Naomi's words. So, don't come with me. You don't want to live life as a widow. Go back to your people. Go back to your gods. Whereas Ruth was very steadfast and firm and adamant that she wasn't going anywhere. So the other thing we learn about how to be successful is that if you want to be a success, you can't give up, as I said in number one, but you can't listen to the naysayers. You can't listen to the negative words that people speak, and how they might kind of try to discourage you and dissuade you from doing this thing. The other thing that Orpah teaches us is that we basically need to learn how to let go of the past if we want to be able to grab hold of our future. So the Bible is very clear. I think it's in Ruth 1 verse 15, if I remember correctly, that Orpah didn't just go back to Moab, she went back to her people and to her gods. So one of the things that I explored as well in that blog post is actually the importance of letting go of past relationships that may actually be hindering us, and also our gods, and our gods may be, things that we feel are like a security blanket, the things that keep us safe, but might actually be holding us back. Maybe some habits, maybe some mindsets, maybe some insecurities or fears that are actually not true, for example, but we still hold on to, more than sometimes even the promises of God and what he would actually have us to do going forward. So that was the summary of what I wrote on Sunday. What I love about God is that a lot of times when I sit down and I write a post, or, I have a thought about a certain passage in the Bible, he tends to give me even more kind of downloads. And I kind of became a bit obsessed with Orpah. I've really, apart from teaching us how to not go about being successful, I kind of wondered, what else was it that could have made her turn back, And I think it was quite a few things. I think it's the fact that in order to be as successful as Ruth, she would have had to go to an unfamiliar place, for example. She would have, as I said, had to mix with unfamiliar people and form new relationships, which could have been very scary for her. Letting go of old relationships, letting go of old gods, old people, learning new skills. One of the things that Ruth ended up having to do when she went to Bethlehem was learning how to glean and reap the corn. This was not something that she had to do before, and then this was a new skill that she had to pick up. and also kind of standing out in a crowd. When you're learning a new skill, you might not be as great. Thank you very much for the like, Anita Louise. Welcome. You might not be, as great, for example, as you are hoping that you might be. You also being in an unfamiliar place. Hi, Isata. Being in an unfamiliar place, for example, you really do kind of stand out in the crowd. And it got me thinking, do you know what? In that sense, I know that there are times that I can identify with Orpah, because the fact of the matter is, when we want to go towards our goals and our dreams, when we want to be successful, this is what success requires of us. It's scary, it's all of these things of leaving things behind, learning new skills, and potentially failing, that can sometimes make us fear success. How many of you, especially now that you've joined, can actually identify with that? Can you kind of comment below and let me know whether you've actually been in that position, same as me, of fearing success? And once I get your answers, I shall continue with my points. I just want to know that I'm talking to the right people, that I'm, sharing the right stuff here. Let's see. I think there's a bit of a delay. Let me continue and then just see whether anything pops up. So, if you, like me, have suffered from the fear of success, then I want you to really think about these 3 points that I'm about to share with you. So the first thing is, I want you to remember that success lies outside of your comfort zone. I'm sure you've heard the saying that if you continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results, then that's a sign of madness. The fact of the matter is, Anita Louise says, yes, I find that I start goals or think of goals and then it gets stuck. Exactly. And I think a lot of that can be, as we're talking about, just that fear of moving forward, that fear of the unknown, that fear of what success can look like and what it might bring. Exactly. Thank you for sharing, Anita. So the fact is that fear lies outside of your comfort zone. If you continue to do the same thing, if you continue to stay on the same level, if you continue to have the same habits, the same mindsets, then the fact of the matter is, whatever the desires are that God has put on your heart, whatever the goals and the dreams that He has given you, are then not going to be within your reach. So you really cannot expect to make any changes. You can't actually expect to attain to your goals if you don't make any changes. It's just not possible. So the first question that I really, really want you guys to think about, before I share that, I've been in a situation when I've reached a goal and then make every excuse of why I shouldn't actually do it. Me too. So if that's you, then the question that I would really encourage you to think about is your comfort, your personal comfort right now, more important than the goals and the dreams that you say that you want? Especially with New Year's and everything like that. We're always busy with New Year, new me. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to change. Is your comfort more important than those actual goals and dreams that you say that you want? That's the first thing that I want to challenge you to think about. The other thing I want you to also make note of as well is the fact that your success is actually not about you. It's about God. Okay, so a lot of the times, I talked about how success will make you have to learn new skills. It might make you have to stand out in a crowd. You might be doing something that's only your pet passion, and the people around you, for example, might not be interested in. So it might cause you actually to stand out from other people. Like I said, it could be uncomfortable. It's new, and so because of that, what we tend to do is think about all of those things. Oh no, I'm going to look like a fool. Oh no, what if I can't do it? What if I fail? And you'll notice all of the common things and threads in those sentences is I, and me. But as Christians, as Christian women, when God calls us to do something, we need to remember that it's not about us. Okay, Matthew 5:16 says that we are to let our light so shine before men that our Father in heaven may be glorified. God hasn't called us to play small. God hasn't called us to hide our lights in, under a blanket or a bushel, as the Bible says. He has actually called us to be like a city on a hill. He wants us to be like a lighthouse. And the reason for that is not for us to get all the glory. I'm not necessarily doing these lives and sharing, the skills and the insights that God has given me so that I can sit here and, say how great I am, for example. It's about the fact that when God has blessed us with gifts and when God has blessed us with talents, he gives it to us for us to share. And then in sharing with other people, when we bless other people and other people, absolutely, right? It's about his glory. When other people see our gifts and our talents, when they're blessed by them, it's then our opportunity to point upwards. It's then our opportunity to say where it is that these things come from and why it is that we're doing it. So I would say, especially where you talked about starting goals and then, maybe getting stuck or being in a situation where you kind of make every excuse about why you shouldn't do it. What you need to be thinking about is not you, and not about your excuses and not about how you are feeling, but whether or not you actually were called of God to do this thing. And if you were, you need to be thinking about, as Isis had just shared, his glory and what it is that he would have you do. So the second question that I really, really want you to think about in terms of overcoming your fear of success is, does your playing small actually please God or glorify him? And if not, what can you do to change your mindset or your behavior or your habits today to make sure that actually you are? Okay, does that make sense? Comment below, let me know that you're still with me. I'm still making sense. You're still vibing with me. The third thing that I want you also to think about is the fact that success is not only not about you and it's about God, but it's also about the people that you are called to serve. So those experiences, those gifts, those talents that you take for granted because, it just comes so naturally to you that you maybe think that other people, that they can do it too, or that it's insignificant. I want to share with you right now that those gifts and those talents, like I said, were not meant to be hoarded, and they were not meant to be kept to yourself. They were meant to be shared with other people. There are people out there who are reliant on you to share your gifts. There are people out there who are reliant on you for their encouragement, for their next breakthrough, for, whatever it is. You could actually be the answer to somebody's prayer. But actually, if you don't share, if you don't let people know what it is that God has laid on your heart and what it is that you're able to do for his glory, then actually you could be responsible for somebody else maybe not receiving the answers to their prayer or not receiving their breakthrough. Okay, so remembering first and foremost that, number one, you don't get your goals and dreams by staying in your comfort zone. You don't get your goals and dreams by actually staying small. Number two, you don't actually get your goals and dreams not only by playing small, but it's not about you. It's not about your fear. It's not about your excuses. It's about God and it's about his glory. And then the third thing again is that it's not about you. It's about the people that you are serving. There are times where I get really, really nervous, for example, doing these lives. There are times where I get really, really nervous, for example, writing on my blog or sharing personal stories or, podcasting, whatever the case may be. But the thing that really helps me through and the thing that anchors me is when I realized, what? This is to serve other people. There's somebody out there who needs this. Okay. So the third question I would really, really encourage you to ask yourself is, how can I begin to use my gift to serve other people today? Because one of the things that the Bible says as well, I think it's in Acts 13:36, is that we are called to serve our generation by the will of God. We're not called just to have our gifts, have our talents, and stow it away and, just have it there for us. We are called to give it to other people. Feeling humbled. Thank you. You're so welcome. And once again, I think I said it in the first live, is that a lot of the times when I share with you guys, it's stuff that I've actually gone through myself, because okay, so I'll share this with you guys. Okay, I have always written. I started off kind of writing poetry, and then it kind of turned into reflections and the blog as you know it today. And people, especially as a teenager, being in church, and I used to read my stuff out, people were constantly saying, oh, you should publish your stuff. Oh, you should share more. You should do this. You should do that. And me and my self-righteous self would always say, oh, no. I write for me. Okay, fine, I don't mind sharing here, but no, I have no desire to share with anyone else or anything like that. They're private. I write for me. I said that for years and years and years. Fast forward, however many years later, and we are now talking on Facebook. I'm very public with this thing, published on the blog, all these different places. I think that's also why success can be so scary. Like I said, it's not that he just calls us out of our comfort zone and all of those sorts of things. It's the fact that actually sometimes he calls us to do things that maybe we swore we would never do. Sometimes he causes us to do things that we would rather not do. We don't want to stand out in the crowd. Some of us prefer to be background people, for example. But I think that's why it is so key to remember the fact, because that's what keeps me going as well, to remember the fact that it is not about you, it's about God. And it's not about just God. It's also about the people that you are called to serve. That's what helps keep it all in perspective. That's what helps keep you humble when people then do come back to you and say, oh my gosh, your gifts and your talents, thank you for sharing, or, that really blessed me, blah, blah, blah. Like, these are the things that kind of keep everything as it should be and in perspective. So just to kind of recap, the questions that you should be asking yourself if you are working through the fear of success at the moment is, number one, is your comfort more important than the goals and dreams that you say that you want, that God has actually placed and laid in your heart? Okay. The second thing that you need to be asking yourself is, does your playing small please God or glorify him? And if it doesn't, then what can you do to change that today? And then the third question that you need to be asking yourself, if you're currently going through the fear of success, is, how can I begin to use my gift in service of others today? So in other words, how can I take the focus off of myself and off of the fears and the excuses that I currently have in my head? Okay, now I hope that blessed you as you're watching right now, whether you're joining me on the live, like you wonderful people, or in the replay. And if it has, or you can think of people who definitely need to hear this, then I'm going to ask you to like, to comment, and to share. I want to thank you for the support that you've been showing me in my last few lives as well. And yeah, just bless you and have a very, very good evening. Until next time, guys. Bye.